This month on The Spark, the theme is Second Chances. We'll sit down with a nonprofit that's working with youth involved in the juvenile justice system and affording them the chance to turn their lives around. A local t-shirt and promotional products company with a track record of success in helping convicted felons find much more than just a job. And an organization powered by volunteers who step in as advocates for children when they need it most. Have you ever been excited by a new idea? Inspired by watching someone lead by example? When we talk about creating change, we start by sharing the stories of everyday heroes who are making a difference in their own way, so we can learn and do the same. This truth is the power behind this show, which is focused on business and community leaders that are leading by example to give back, fuel change, and create new opportunities for the Mid-South. I'm Jeremy Park, and this is The Spark. The theme this month is Second Chances, so perfect way to start out the show is with an organization that is focused on breaking the destructive cycle of criminal behavior, working with over 630 youth since 2003, founded by the Reverend Rick Carr himself, Juvenile Intervention and Faith-Based Follow-Up, JIFF. Give us a snapshot of the mission and purpose of JIFF.
Thank you, Jeremy. The mission of JIFF is very simple. We want to break the destructive cycle of juvenile crime. And the vision, the view when you get to the top of the hills, we want to see young people flourishing free from a life of crime.
And these are primarily kids that are court referred, 12 to about 18, and describe, just so the viewers can see, kind of get a sense of the youth that you typically work with. These are some of the worst repeat offenders, so give us a snapshot of the kids you serve.
Yes, they really are some of our most socially challenged young people in Memphis. Just to put it in perspective, each year through juvenile court, there are about 11,000 delinquent cases. That's not dependency and neglect, that's not unruly, it's adjudicated delinquent young people. Out of that 11,000, there's about 800 to 1,000 young people that are really the chronic level repeat offenders or a higher crime level offender. Last year, about 121 of them were sent down to 201 to be tried as adults. About 275 were sent to state facilities outside of Memphis area like John S. Wilder. That left about 535 young people that are handled by the Youth Service Bureau within juvenile court. That's where JIFF gets our referrals, and we have since March 2003. Those young people used to be sent to Shelby Training Center, a hardware secure facility, but back in 2008 that was shut down. So these young people predominantly just go back onto the streets.
And you guys are realizing phenomenal success. I mean, the average recidivism rate in many cases is over 60%, where they're back in prison in 3 years. You're getting that number down below 30% in most cases. Talk about, you have the A's and the H's, and very holistic in your programs and goals. Start with the A's. Describe the A's.
The A's of JIFF are really the foundation of why JIFF works. JIFF is a relationally based, incarnational based ministry, if you will. Our case mentors build relationships with the young people. Josh McDowell once said that rules without relationships lead to rebellion. And you ask any parent, if you try to impose a bunch of rules but you don't have a relationship with your kid, it's not going to go very well. Same with these young people. And so instead of just throwing our case mentors out there and saying, go build a relationship, we purposely teach them how to do that. And the way we do that is with our A's. It's first of all with acceptance. Take the kid right where he is, just for who he is. Appreciation. Let him know he's fearfully and wonderfully made. There's only one like him. Be available to him and make yourself available through phone calls and for conversation. Show them appropriate affection. They've seen a lot of inappropriate affection, but there's nothing like human touch. Okay, and if we do that, we're acceptance, we're appreciating, we're available, and we are showing them appropriate affection, we have found we earn the right to hold them accountable. And all of a sudden, then we can begin to speak into their world, find out what's really going on, and help them unpack it.
And so before we do that and continue on the H's, let's actually show viewers a little bit of a day in the life at JIFF and what goes on.
When I first started, it was I ain't too much know what I was getting into. My mentor told me just keep an open mind, and I did, and learned a lot of great things. Well, we do the culinary arts up here, then we have life skills, job readiness. So we do a lot of role playing, kind of what you would do if you were going to interview the do's and don'ts. Then we have Chef Marcus, he do culinary, he teach us how to cook, how to work the stove and do all that. Then we have weightlifting, then we go and play ball in the gym. It's a lot of stuff that get you prepared for life. It's very easy to get in trouble, but it's hard to get out. And it taught me that some of your friends ain't your friends, and it showed me a lot about life that I didn't know of, you know, like how to present yourself and how to talk as a young man and how to act and speak and do a lot of stuff. So my words to them is just take, when you come to JIFF, don't take it and run, take it and learn.
If I wasn't here, no telling what I'll be. It's a good place to go there. It's a care center. It's just like, it's a good place to be. JIFF is just awesome.
So we just saw there's a lot going on at JIFF, and we talked about the A's, so now let's talk about the H's.
Okay, the A's, of course, were foundation for building a relationship. But once we build a relationship, what do we do with the kids? Well, we help them develop a life plan, an individual service strategy. Some people may call it a client-centered strategy, so that the young person takes ownership of the direction of their life, where they're going. And they follow H's. Forgive me, I alliterate, I'm a pastor, but the H's have to do with, the first H is their head, that's their education. We need to make sure that they're either staying in school, or if they're too far behind, that we're getting them into our GED program.
And that's tutoring, GED,
That's
all
correct.
the above.
Testing, TABE testing, all that kind of stuff. Their heart, of course, that's core to who JIFF is. We believe that real change takes place from the inside out. That's God's work, and so we want to introduce biblical values to the process. So their head, their heart, their health. It has to do both with their physical health and their psychological health. And you saw the physical fitness equipment,
right,
and the gymnasium. And if they have some psychological issues, we're going to refer them out. So their head, their heart, their health, their home. Of course, we have to interface with the family. Not just with the parent. We're trying to interface with the parents, the guardian, but also with the siblings who are looking up to their brother and say, I want to be like him. We want them to see a more positive picture of what a preferable future could look like.
That's an important part,
and
right.
it really, it's a huge, crucial, critical part. And we're being very purposeful about that. So their head, their heart, their health, their home, their higher ability, if you will, for lack of a better word. What marketable skills do they have? What kind of job can they get now while they're in school, or if they're out of school or have dropped out of school? What kind of vocational training do they need, or can they adapt to, so that we can get them not just a job but an opportunity, a career?
And that's where that culinary school is huge.
Exactly, because second to the service industry is I mean, logistics is first in Memphis, but second to that is the service industry.
Right.
And so they can get in there, they can find their niche, and they can move around and build a career out of it. And then, of course, the last H is their hobbies and interests. What's important to them? What gifting do they have? What can they draw? Can they write? Can they sing? What is it that's important to them that we can help them unpack and grow in?
And we talked about the success you're having, phenomenal. So in most cases, it's 60% in terms of those being repeat offenders back in the system in less than 3 years. You guys are dropping that number so dramatically. What's next? I mean, talk about kind of that next chapter in terms of scalability for you guys.
Well, right now, JIFF is under contract with the University of Mississippi to do a 2-year evaluation of our role in Operation Safe Community and to help JIFF manualize our operations. March 1st, we just celebrated 10 years of operation, and so we have a lot of information, but we're trying to put it together in a manual so that we can repeat this in other locations throughout even the nation. But what we also are trying to do most prominently is bring JIFF to scale. And that means we want to be serving about 300 to 350 of these young people each year and making that kind of impact on their life.
And when you talk about those repeat, I mean, that number was 530, so knocking that down to being able to serve 350, that's huge.
Yeah, that's correct. Because we truly believe that if we can serve that many young people each year with the with the lower recidivism rate that we're seeing, we can actually lower the crime rate in Memphis overall by preventing these young people from crossing over and becoming adult criminals.
There you go. Well, greatly appreciate it. Applaud your efforts. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Part of the fun of the Spark is being able to showcase businesses, organizations, business leaders leading by example, especially in unique ways. So I'm here with a man, his company, you can see their promotional products, their shirts all across the Mid-South. They're a huge part of the heartbeat of the Memphis Rocks campaign and the Memphis Rocks t-shirts, which hopefully you see all over the world. But I'm here with Mike Bowen with Champion Awards and Apparel. And before we talk about the Late Bloomers program, which I love just that term, give us some context. Talk about Champion Awards and Apparel.
Jeremy, we're a small family-owned company. My mom started in a barn. My mom and dad started in a barn 44 years ago with sewing money and Avon money. And in the 70s, my brother and I started printing T-shirts. We print T-shirts every day. We make trophies every day. We brand companies' products all over the country every day. And we've been doing it a long time, and we do it quite well.
And the thing that I love too is that you work with nonprofits to help them with their T-shirts and be able to make a revenue generation for them. You yourself and your team heavily engaged in the community, serving on boards and donating your time, effort, energy, resources. So I appreciate that. Talk about the Late Bloomers program. So let's go ahead and transition. Give us an idea of the genesis and where this started.
From Mom again. She was president of SCORE, and she was going into prisons and teaching young men how to get a job when they got out of prison. And she called me one day and she said, Mike, you're going to hire this young man. You need to hire this young man. And I said, Mom, no, I'm not. She said, yes, Mike, you are. And I said, yes, Mom, we will give him a chance. And along came Patrick Brown. The precursor to Patrick Brown was Marlo Starks, which a pastor had called us 6 months previously. And the light bulb kind of went on.
And on this, you're working with Transition Ministries, which they're working with them to help kind of build that foundation back. They have transportation, which is the key, so they can get them to work and back after work. Talk about working with Transition Ministries and the importance of that organization.
Well, the number one problem in the community is with the 22,000 felons that live in the community now is they live in areas that there aren't jobs. So Forgiveness House and Transition Ministries, smart layman, bought a van. And he said, hey, I can bring you some employees, Mike, because I called him about a year later and said, do you have any more like Patrick?
Because they're hardworking, they want that second chance, and then it's a matter of you being able to work with them and talk about that. I mean, because I think that's important, is these are convicted felons, so they're not typically having the same upbringing as many others, and so you're having to kind of build that foundation to work with them. And
here's the neat thing. When we first started, it was a 30-minute to 3-hour probationary period. Brother Bob would bring us late bloomers. We called them ex-offenders at that point. If they didn't work out, we'd call Brother Bob and say, come get them, bring us another one. So we got a chance to try. After about 2 years of that, I said, wait a minute, guys, we've got to improve this sustainability. And one of my managers a couple of years ago said, why don't we write a career path? And we titled it The Late Bloomers Career Path. And it's working.
And actually, it's working. So that's a great point to go ahead and take a look at this feature where we interview some of your employees and hear from them, firsthand experience. What does the Late Bloomers program mean to them?
We bring guys in and we basically try to see where their mind at, you know, because a person want a job don't necessarily mean that they really want it. When I first came here, you know, I didn't speak a lot, you know, because, you know, at the time I was just, you know, leaving prison and I'm basically trying to figure myself out and I'm trying to figure other people out. But then I get around and the managers and directors, they challenge me to step up, you know, and they put me in certain positions and one thing I learned was confidence and determination.
In spite of my past, in spite of the things that I did in my past, they actually saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. When I say it's a family, it is a family. It's a real family. We don't see no wrong. Mr. Mike is colorblind. He don't care if you white, black, brown, or yellow. He got love, and he got it with unconditional love, and he give everybody a chance. If it wasn't for them, I can't say where I'd be at, but I can, honest to God, say the truth. They are good people. And the team and the family that I am in now, I'm glad to be in this family. I wouldn't trade it in for nothing in the world.
So we just saw the importance of the Late Bloomers program in terms of what it means to your employees. And on your end, these are convicted felons. And so there's a lot of that growing pain on both ends.
Right.
And I think at this point, just knowing you personally, they've become like family to you.
Yes.
And so I know you yourself have changed a lot in this process. Share a little about, though, just how it's changed you and how it's made you, honestly, kind of a better person. I mean, I think you'll admit that.
It made me realize that if I see these people more than I see my family, and my plant, Champion Awards, is my home. And if I'm going to have you in my home, I'm going to be willing to break bread with you. So these gentlemen get a chance to come out to my home, and they work side by side with me. We landscape. So we get a chance, and I get help. I'm getting a little old to do some things, and they're helping me a whole lot more than I'm helping them. They get paid, but giving people second and third chances in life is the key.
And talk about what would you recommend, because I know there's a lot of companies out there that are looking at, how can I make a difference? How can we incorporate those that might need a second chance, deserve a second chance? How can we get them to have opportunities in a corporate setting? What would you tell them?
It's easy. I always say there's 3,000 churches in this community. There's 22,000 small businesses in this community. If each one of those gave a late bloomer just one chance, even if it was for 3 months, 6 months, just that one spark would maybe set them on their way, that there are some people out there in the community that will give them a second and third chance, even if it didn't work out.
I just think it's amazing. You've got 12 on your staff right now. I've gotten to know them personally. Amazing gentlemen. Very amazing work ethic, and then you've trained over 100. So when you look at the impact already that you're having that carries it forward, great work. So I greatly appreciate you coming on the show, greatly appreciate everything you're doing in the community, and applaud your efforts.
Thanks, Jeremy.
With the theme of second chances, I think it's very important to talk about how we can get youth out of a bad situation and give them a second chance for successful life. So we're here with Wendy Shea. She's with CASA, which is Court-Appointed Special Advocates, and they've worked with over 16,000 youth since 1988. Give us a little bit of a snapshot, though, Wendy, when you talk about CASA, Court-Appointed Special Advocates. Talk about the mission and really the goal of CASA.
All right. Our mission is to empower community volunteers to serve as advocates in juvenile court for abused and neglected children. Our goal is for these children to leave custody and return to safe, permanent homes.
And talk about the family situation, because obviously this is a critical piece of this. Is many are coming from bad environments. They're coming from drug, alcohol abuse, sexual abuse, unfortunately. But give us a little bit of a snapshot of what their family life is coming from with these youth.
All right. These children are in state custody because their parents are either unable or unwilling to care for them. There's sexual abuse, physical abuse, environmental neglect, the homes are filthy. You may have a young mother who simply doesn't know how to care for their child.
And am I correct, it's about 1,000 kids right now in foster care here in the Memphis-Shelby County area?
That's correct. At any given time, there are about 1,000 children in foster care. We have approximately 100 volunteers, so the need is certainly greater than what we can meet.
And talk about, obviously you guys are volunteer powered. Mm-hmm. Share a little about what it means to be a volunteer. I know you guys do a very extensive training, and then there's kind of a 3 or 4 step process with that, but share a little about just the importance of being a volunteer and what it means to be a volunteer.
All right. We recruit volunteers from throughout the community. You don't have to be an attorney. You go through a 40-hour training program, full background check. You're then sworn in by the magistrate and assigned a case. You do a thorough investigation, find out why has this child come into custody. Then you make a report and recommendation to the magistrate.
And I think it's really neat. I mean, when you look at the success, is it 94% overall that the magistrate accepts the recommendation? Because, I mean, you're getting people that, as a parent, you want to do it's called advocate for a reason, but you want to do what's best for that child. And so you're stepping in, you're assessing the situation, mm-hmm. You're making your recommendation on what you think is the best next step for that child.
Correct.
And I think it's neat that the judge obviously listens very intently, correct?
That's correct. 94% of the permanency recommendations that we make are accepted and entered in the court's final order. I think the key, though, is the monitoring and advocacy, making sure that this child stays on track with a goal toward returning to a safe, permanent home.
Well, we've got a fun breakout session where we talk about the importance from a judge's perspective and also a volunteer. So let's take a quick look at this breakout session so we can see this in action and learn a little bit more.
If a child comes into our courtroom and there are allegations that child's abused or neglected, under the state law in Tennessee, before we can move on that case and come to some resolution, there has to be clear and convincing evidence that the child is in fact abused and neglected. Judges are at a distinct disadvantage in the courtroom if the evidence is not there to give us a route to get to the answer. It's as distinct and varied as the children we see. No single case can be duplicated. They're all different. The importance to me, sitting on that bench and getting a CASA report, starts with, I know I'm getting a quality piece of information. No doubt about it. The last one I had in the courtroom, that volunteer had talked to like 32 people. She had talked to the whole village, okay? So I was able to see a really good picture of this environment that this child was growing up in. In addition to that, she made very strong recommendations based on what she had found in her interviews on which direction I could choose if I so chose to. I did. I took her recommendations. Her recommendations were supported by the evidence at trial. That's how critical good CASA work can be. It's actually information I may not have gotten had that volunteer not been on the case.
So we just saw the breakout session there. We're talking about the importance overall and obviously what it means to be volunteer from that perspective. Talk about, though, I think, with this theme of second chances, what's that end goal with the youth in mind?
The end goal is for them to return to a safe, permanent home. Initially, it's of course return to their parents. That's not always possible. Right. So you're also looking for a relative, aunt, a grandmother. There may be instances where that's not possible. The last alternative is for adoption. And there are instances where the children are adopted. As I say, our goal is the safe, permanent home. Where can this child thrive?
Let's go back to being a volunteer. You guys have 100 volunteers. You have a number of different ways, though, that people can help and get plugged in and volunteer through CASA. Talk about some of the ways they can volunteer, and also, too, once again, back to the thing that this is volunteer-powered. This is critically important to help serve these youth. They need an advocate. So share with us about the volunteerism.
I think it's a very unique volunteer opportunity because it's not a fixed time. You're committing the time for training, for investigation, appearing at court hearings, and the ongoing advocacy, checking up in the home. Is the parent, the mother, receiving services? Is the child receiving counseling and all? That's the monitoring and advocacy part. So it's a real commitment on the part of the volunteer.
Give us one, obviously you don't have to go name names or anything, but give us one success story that really stands out where, you can kind of see the end result of this being a big success and why it's important for our community.
Okay. We had a situation where it was actually a teacher who made the report, but the child was obviously not being fed, clothing. A report was made, they went to the home. It was filthy, there was no food, rodents, all of those things. Child goes into state custody. The services that were provided were parenting classes, helping the mother learn how to be a good parent. Once the mother had completed the training and all, the child was able to return home. Nice. And at that point, it's a safe home and the mother is prepared to continue and care for that child in a loving and supporting way.
And that's a perfect end all when you talk about what the end goal is, return
Correct.
them with the parent and give them that second chance, not only for the youth, but also the parent.
Correct.
So I greatly appreciate what you guys are doing in the community. Can't thank you enough, and thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thank you so much. I've enjoyed this.
Whether it's an advocate helping a child from a bad situation, or a mentor or business leader offering guidance, opportunity, and hope to someone who's made a mistake, second chances are critically important to our community. In some way, we're all beneficiaries of a second chance because we've all made mistakes in life. While many of those mistakes are small and some might be large, part of our society's success depends on not just offering love and forgiveness, but becoming engaged in directing and modeling the way to be productive citizens. We've said it before, but engagement is key, and together we can do great things. So thank you for watching The Spark. To learn more about each of the guests and interact with your stories of others leading by example, visit thesparktv.org. We look forward to seeing you next month, and we hope that you'll join with us in creating a spark for the Mid-South.